I want to stop children suffering the fear, pain and heartache that domestic abuse brings. Who are the Worcestershire domestic abuse professionals?
My name is Justin Taylor, I'm a Detective Inspector and I'm responsible for a department that looks at protecting vulnerable people, and that includes domestic abuse, child protection and sexual offences against vulnerable people.
My name is Michael Conroy Harris and I'm the Collaboration Coordinator for the Continue Trust, which is a group of high schools and an FE college in the Wyre Forest and Hagley area of northwest Worcestershire.
I'm Tony Porter. I'm the co-founder of A Call to Men, and our work is focused on engaging men in domestic sexual violence prevention, as well as promoting healthy manhood.
My name's Kay Clark and I am founder of Support Works Foundation and co-director and founder of A Call to Men UK.
What is domestic abuse?
Domestic abuse can take many forms and can range from serious sexual offences through to serious assaults, and it can range down to people finding that they feel uncomfortable in certain circumstances. People can find themselves in an intimate relationship and suffering abuse, and also young people can find that their family members or parents are in an abusive relationship and they are witnessing the effects of that.
Abuse can involve physical violence such as kicking, punching, slapping, pressurising you into sex, but there are other forms of abuse. Emotional and verbal abuse can involve your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and that would be things like saying things that make you feel small, whether you're alone or in front of people, pressuring you to do things you don't want to do, including sexual things, checking up on you all the time to find out where you are and who you're with. For example, texting you or calling you when you're out with your friends. Now, as well as happening when you're together, emotional and verbal abuse can happen on the phone or on the internet. Behaviour like this is not about love. It's about someone controlling you and making you behave how they want. People who abuse a partner verbally or emotionally may turn to violence later on in the relationship. Now, this kind of behaviour really is a big warning sign.
Why is raising the profile of domestic abuse to young people important?
Domestic abuse can affect young people in a number of ways. It's individual with most of them, but most common is self-harming, taking risky behaviours, missing school, maybe abusing drugs, isolated, low self-esteem, confidence, being scared, frightened, emotionally, everything like that really.
Over a year there were nearly 8,000 incidences of domestic abuse in Worcestershire that were recorded. There are an awful lot of incidents that aren't recorded. More than 1 in 10 teenagers experience physical abuse from the person that they're dating. Almost 1 million children witness domestic abuse every year. That's an average of 3 in every class of 30 pupils.
How does a young person know if they're suffering domestic abuse in a relationship?
To find out if you're in an abusive relationship, ask yourself a few questions. Does your partner harm you physically in any way, including slapping, punching, pushing, grabbing, shaking, smacking, kicking? Does your partner try to control different aspects of your life, such as how you dress, what you wear, who you hang out with and what you actually say? Does your partner frequently humiliate you or make you feel unworthy? For example, does your partner put you down but tells you he or she loves you? Does your partner threaten to harm you or self-harm if you leave the relationship? Does your partner twist the truth to make you feel you are to blame for your partner's actions? Does your partner demand to know where you are at all times? And does your partner constantly become jealous or angry when you want to spend time with your friends? Unwanted sexual advances that make you feel uncomfortable are also red flags that the relationship needs to focus more on respect. When someone says stuff like, if you loved me, you would do X, Y, Z, that's also a warning sign of possible abuse.
Does domestic abuse just happen to girls and women?
No, not at all. Nearly 75% of girls and almost 50% of boys report some form of emotional abuse. 33% of girls and 16% of boys report some form of sexual abuse. And 25% of girls and 18% of boys report some form of physical abuse. Interestingly, girls report a greater impact of the abuse, a negative impact of the abuse on themselves. And girls are more likely to say that the abuse is repeated and that it either remains at the same level of severity or it worsens, especially after the relationship ends.
How does domestic abuse impact on young people's education?
Domestic abuse really impacts on a young person's time in school. If you've suffered over the weekend, drunk parents having to have the police called, the first thing it affects is your attendance. You don't want to come to school because you're concerned of what's going to happen at home while you're not there, or you might want to stay at home and protect the rest of your family. If you are in school, your mind keeps wandering off to what's happened and it's very difficult to focus on your lessons. You might get into trouble because you're off task or you're misbehaving in lessons. So you could get told off and you could end up, say, for getting a detention, which will keep you back in school, which will make you more anxious and concerned about what's going on at home. So the impact that something like domestic abuse can have is really tangible for our students, particularly where for a lot of our students school is the one safe place, stable place in their lives, and we want them to feel that that is the case. So obviously we need them in school and they need to know that we're there supporting them and helping them rather than punishing them because they can't focus because of what's gone on out of their control at home. So I don't think anybody in schools can underestimate the impact that domestic abuse has on the learning of young people.
Why are people wearing white ribbons at school?
The White Ribbon Campaign, which is also known as the 16 Days of Action, started in Canada in 1991 when a group of men spoke up against violence against women. We're encouraging everyone to wear a white ribbon to signify a commitment against committing, condoning or remaining silent about domestic abuse and sexual violence. As part of our campaign this year, our newly recruited community ambassadors encourage students throughout the Wyre Forest and Hagley to wear a white ribbon and take the pledge.
What is the Charm programme?
We've teamed up with A Call to Men UK, which is linked to A Call to Men US, and that is a group which is all about changing the way that young lads and boys and men see being a man and what it's about and what being male means and what being female means. And hopefully, as a result of some new training, which is called the Charm programme for the moment, coaching healthy and respectful masculinity. Hopefully as a result of that and the training of staff in delivering that coaching programme, we'll have dozens and then hundreds of young lads locally who are clued up about how they are socially made into a kind of masculinity that can actually cause harm for others, definitely, but also for themselves. The Coaching Healthy and Respectful Masculinity programme that we're co-delivering and piloting with A Call to Men UK is, as far as we know, it's a national first, and in fact we don't know of anything globally which is similar. The nature of it is a strategic, it's a curriculum, it's a series of lesson plans with teachers being trained for 4 days in the deep background theory about how society permits and condones domestic abuse and domestic violence, and how we can work in schools, which is the time that really counts when young minds are being formed, how we can work strategically in schools to transmit different messages and create, hopefully, an impetus for sharing that messages from student to student.
Wow, I've just watched the brilliant Tony Porter from A Call to Men deliver a healthy masculinity talk to lads in Year 9 at Wolverley School. What does it really mean to be a man?
So we put a lot of our investment in working with boys. We have a strong focus on the next generation of men. We feel that if we could put a lot of our efforts into boys and engage boys in efforts of healthy and respectful manhood, we can not only create loving men, but we also can create men who have a value for women. And so we're creating a safe environment for all.
I thought today's session was worthwhile because it taught us that women were treated in bad ways, in that the stereotypes towards women were that they were weak, and when actually they are more than that.
I've changed my views about girls because in the past I haven't treated girls with enough respect that they deserve. I recommend this session to boys because it just shows how bad we actually are treating girls, and they need to be treated as equal.
It's made me view girls differently because it's made me think of them as a person more than I did before.
Is domestic abuse a crime?
.2% of all crime that's been recorded within West Mercia has been determined to be domestic related. 34.5% of all violent offences across West Mercia are found to be attributed to domestic violence.
What happens if a young person reports domestic abuse to the police?
When a domestic type of incident is reported to the police, we'll listen very carefully to what the victim has to say to us or what the witness has seen, so that we can decide with that witness or victim on the best course of action which suits them. We'll provide a lot of ongoing support through the police specialist investigators, and also through external agencies and charities which will support the victim. When young people find themselves in an abusive relationship, we will deal with that as we would do adults, and we'll provide support. We'll help them to find ways of dealing with the situation.
What support for domestic abuse can young people access?
If a young person's experiencing domestic abuse or knows someone who they think might be going through that situation, they could tell somebody that they trust, like a teacher or a close friend. You could go onto the Women's Aid website, which has a special section for young people called The Hideout, and you can cover your tracks on that so nobody needs to know that you've been on there. Or you could ring the Worcestershire Forum 24-hour helpline, and there'll be a trained person on the other end of the phone who'll be able to help you and advise you.
Please don't suffer in silence. Tell someone.
I pledge never to commit, condone or remain silent about domestic abuse and sexual violence in all its forms.